you guys? It's your boy Sodium285, and welcome to part 3 of I Sacrifice My Happiness for You, my Pokemon Advance Shipping story. Now, if you haven't seen chapters 1 through 8, which are parts 1 and 2, there should be a playlist in the title card above or in the description below. So I recommend you watch those before you go and watch this video. But if you have already seen these, enjoy chapters 9 through 11, i.e. part 3 of I'd Sacrifice My Happiness for You. Chapter 9. What He Means to Me. May continued chasing Eevee through the streets of Geosenge Town. She couldn't understand what had possessed the normal type to run off like that. She followed it into a corner, in which it was sniffing the ground until it reached a manhole. It then summoned a tail whip, knocking the lid off, then it jumped into the hole. "Eevee!" May cried out. While she felt she should really be continuing her search for hers and Ash's missing Pokemon, at the same time, she had grown quite fond of this Eevee, and how friendly it had been to her, and she wanted to make sure it didn't run into any trouble, so she climbed into the manhole to catch up with the energetic normal type. May continued to follow Eevee until it came to a standstill, causing her to come to a standstill herself. The sight in which she and Eevee currently laid their eyes on horrified her. All of Ash's Pokemon, from his loyal Pikachu, to his original team of Bulbasaur, Charizard, Kingler, Muk, Tauros, and Snorlax, to his Johto team of Heracross, Bayleaf, Quilava, Totodile, Noctowl, and Donphan, to his Hoenn team of Swellow, Sceptile, Corphish, Torkoal, and Glalie, to his Sinnoh team of Staraptor, Torterra, Infernape, Weasel, Gliscor, and Gible, to his Unova team of Unpheasant, Oshawott, Pignite, Snivy, Scraggy, Ivani, Palpitoad, Boldore, and Crocodile, to his Kalos team of Talonflame, Hawlucha, and Noivern, and to his latest team of Rowlet, Lycanroc, Torracat, and Melmetal, were all locked up in cages. "Ash's Pokemon! They're all here!" she exclaimed. "Is this why you ran off like that, Eevee? Did sniffing my half ribbon and travel photos make you catch their scent, as they're similar to Ash's?" Eevee nodded. As soon as Pikachu saw May, its eyes widened with happiness and called out to the Petalburg coordinator. Ash's Hoenn Pokemon joined Pikachu in calling out to her, and soon so did the rest of the bunch. "Pikachu! Everyone! Are you okay?" May asked them, very concerned for their well-being. They all nodded their heads yes. "Have you all tried any of your attacks to release yourselves?" They all nodded their heads yes again. At that moment, Eevee tried using its tail whip to break one of the cages, but got electrocuted upon contact with the cage. "Eevee!" May cried out with worry for the friendly normal type. She picked it up, reached for her bag, and used a sponge to heal its wounds as much as she could, something her mother had advised her to carry with her in case she'd end up in dangerous situations like this. Eevee woke up, eager to not give up, and sent a sand attack at the cage, followed by a swift before trying quick attack. Nothing worked, and upon quick attack, got electrocuted again. May used her sponge again. Eevee opened its eyes again and smiled at the Petalburg coordinator to let her know it was okay. "There's got to be a way to free them," May thought to herself. Now that she had found all of the Pokemon belonging to the guy she loved, there was no way she was going to leave anybody behind. She started to look around her for some clues. Eevee looked with her. It had grown fond of this caring coordinator and wanted to help her any way it can. They saw a curtain covering something and went towards it to see what it was covering. May removed the curtain, revealing a switch, with power written on a sign above it. "I wonder," May thought. She decided to flip the switch the other way. "Everyone, try your attacks again," she told all of Ash's Pokemon. They all started using their attacks, and this time, instead of the cage electrocuting them, their attacks managed to break the cages, freeing all of them. "All right, we did it!" May exclaimed in triumph. Eevee ran into the coordinator's arms and snuggled into her. feeling the triumph she felt, and she cuddled the normal type tightly. Thanks so much for helping me rescue them, Eevee. Once free from their prisons, Ash's Pokémon started running towards May and Eevee happily. Pikachu, Bulbasaur and Corphish jumped into May's arms. Sceptile hugged her. Swellow, Torkoal, Glalie and Donphan knocked her down to the floor out of affection. They were soon joined by Charizard, Snorlax and Heracross, who all also hugged her. But the affection Ash's Pokémon were giving her didn't stop there, as the rest of the bunch hurried towards her. Bayleaf, Quilava and Torterra rubbed their heads next to hers. Gliscor and Crocodile gave her a massive hug. Lycanroc and Torracat licked her affectionately. Totodile, Weasel, Snivy and Oshawott joined in, hugging her, as did everyone else. While she liked the affection they were all giving her, she couldn't understand why when a lot of these Pokémon hadn't met her before now, unless Ash had mentioned her to them. One of the hugs she got was from Infernape, which made her turn around to face the fire type. "You're the Infernape Ash raised from a Chimchar," May said. Infernape nodded its head and smiled at her. Tears started falling from May's eyes as she remembered the tragic story Ash had told her that this fire type had been through. She began wondering if, back when she had first started her journey, she would have ended up abandoning her Blaziken when it was still a Torchic, like Paul had done with Infernape when it was still a Chimchar, if she hadn't met Ash and Pikachu, since she had initially not even liked Pokémon, and back then would have even traded them for a trip around the world. She then broke down, confessing how she used to dislike Pokémon before meeting Ash and Pikachu, how she didn't deserve any of their kindness because of that. Seeing the tears in her eyes, Pikachu, Eevee, Torkoal and Corphish cuddled into her even more. Sceptile put a hand on her shoulder, as did Swellow with its wing. Infernape put a hand on her other shoulder, telling her that she had earned their affection and Ash's love because she's a caring person, and he had seen that, as did all of them. Seeing the care they were all showing her at that moment made her realize that she wouldn't have abandoned Torchic, as Torchic had shown her so much affection from the moment it saw her. Torchic had chosen her just as much as she had chosen Torchic, and it had played a part in her becoming fond of Pokémon too, same with Squirtle having chosen her. "I appreciate all of your affection," she told the whole bunch. "But why? I'm not Ash, and most of you don't even know me." Pikachu put its paw to its chest. "You and Ash told them about me, Pikachu?" May asked the electric type. Pikachu nodded yes. Sceptile, Swellow, Torkoal, Corphish, Donphan and Glalie then came forward, joining Pikachu in trying to tell her how they all saw how much Ash cared about her, and had vowed to protect her like they'd protect Ash, their own trainer. With Bayleaf, Bulbasaur, Charizard, Snorlax, Quilava, Heracross, Infernape, Gliscor, Torterra, Crocodile, Snivy, Oshawott, Talonflame, Hawlucha, Noivern, Melmetal, Lycanroc and Torracat backing them up. While May didn't understand completely what all of them were saying, she understood that they had figured out how much she meant to their trainer. Seeing their loyalty to Ash, that they'd protect her too, took her back to when she had returned home after the Johto Grand Festival. "Welcome home, sweetie," Norman and his wife Caroline called out to their daughter as she returned home. "Mom, Dad, it's great to be home." May hugged her parents. Max came in and joined in the family hug. She told them about her adventures in the Johto region, how this time she had made it all the way to the top 2 of the Johto Grand Festival, but, like at the Kanto 1 in the top 4 before, lost to Soledad. "Hey, I say you're getting the hang of being a coordinator," Caroline exclaimed. "Being the runner-up is nothing to sell yourself short on. Besides, you still managed to outpass Drew and Harley." "True," May agreed, but despite managing to develop my own battle style like I'd intended to do in Johto, Soledad still saw right through it. She must have observed my new style carefully. She said she was heading for Sinnoh next. So were Drew and Harley. However, I thought I'd take a bit of a break to think some things through. "That's a good idea, sweetheart," Norman said. "So, we saw the Wallace Cup in Sinnoh on TV, and saw how your Eevee had evolved into Glaceon, and it battled really hard against Dawn's Piplup." "That's right, and thanks for the encouragement, Dad. Glaceon gave it its all," May smiled. She then brought all of her Pokémon out of their Pokéballs, allowing her Blaziken, Glaceon, Beautifly, Venusaur, Wartortle, and Munchlax to appear and to say hi to the rest of the family. I can't thank you all enough for always having my back in Johto. Too bad we lost in the finals, she told her trusty Pokémon. They all cheered for her, letting her know they'll always have her back. That reminds me, May, Max told his sister. Hey Delcatty, come here, May's back. At that moment, a Delcatty came out of the living room, ran towards May and rubbed its head next to her leg. Skitty? May asked the normal type. Delcatty nodded its head yes. Whoa! The coordinator exclaimed. You evolved into Delcatty. She hugged it tightly. That's right, Max explained. A week ago, I was keeping Skitty company in the garden when it found some stone on the ground, and once it touched it, it evolved into Delcatty. It must have been a moonstone. May smiled at her brother and gave him a massive hug. So, Max, are you excited to be starting your journey as an official Pokémon trainer in a couple of weeks? Absolutely, her brother answered. I can't wait to head to Professor Birch's lab to collect my very first Pokémon. May turned to all of her Pokémon. Come on, let's head to my room. She and all her Pokémon ran up to her room and started making themselves comfortable. Delcatty, Beautifly, Wartortle and Munchlax hung around each other, while Venusaur and Glaceon stayed around May. Blaziken, however, was looking at some of May's travel photos on her desk. Blaziken? What's wrong? May asked her first partner Pokémon. The loyal fire type turned to its trainer and showed her a photo of her with Ash. She smiled at the photo, as it brought back happy memories of her time with Ash and how much she missed having him around her. Unexpectedly to her, Blaziken nudged her and pointed at the photo before pointing at her backpack. Are you saying I should take it with me on our next journey, Blaziken? She asked the fire type, who nodded his head yes in response. But why? She asked, curious about what her loyal starter was thinking. Blaziken just crossed its arms and raised an eyebrow, as if telling his trainer, do you really think none of us have noticed how much Ash means to you? You're in love with him. What? No, May protested, realizing what her starter was implying. She didn't want to admit that she had developed feelings for Ash during their journeys in Hoenn and Kanto, and even after traveling by herself in Johto, she still had feelings for him. But Blaziken insisted, this time with Glaceon, Venusaur and the rest of her Pokémon backing the fire type up. May sighed. Alright, I'll take it with us wherever we go. She realized her Pokémon were not buying her cover-ups about her strong feelings for Ash. In fact, I think I'll travel with Max again and take on the Hoenn Grand Festival again for my next journey. He could use some company on his very first adventure as a trainer, plus it will be a good opportunity to meet more rivals rather than just sticking with Drew, Harley and Soledad, so that if I ever eventually battle Soledad in a contest again, she won't be able to predict my strategy as easily as she used to. Max, who had watched and heard the entire conversation, chimed in. Really? Thanks sis, that means a lot. I missed having you around. May then walked out of her room and headed for the garden. Her brother and her parents joined her trusty Pokémon and smiled at them, especially Blaziken. That was a really nice thing, Blaziken, Caroline told the fire type. I can't thank you enough for always supporting our daughter. She might not want to admit it right now, Norman added, but she's still very much in love with Ash. But one day, she'll be ready to confess her feelings to him. Looking back, her Pokémon were right. This made her think back to a couple of weeks back to the night before the finals of the Sinnoh Grand Festival she had participated in, when she had a life-changing conversation with an old friend of Ash and Dawn's. May was nervous. Tomorrow, the finals of the Sinnoh Grand Festival would begin. It was in the finals of the Johto Grand Festival in which she had lost to Soledad. Since then, she had competed in both the Hoenn and Kanto Grand Festivals a second time each, making new friends and rivals along the way, placing in the top 4 of the Hoenn one and as the runner-up in the Kanto one. After the Hoenn Grand Festival and the Hoenn League, she and her brother had decided to part on their own separate journeys for some time. Max had headed to Sinnoh, while she had competed in the Kanto Grand Festival again, which had prompted her to come to Sinnoh afterwards while he explored Johto, where he had got to meet Dawn, who was competing in contests there. Despite having been the runner-up at both her Johto and second Kanto Grand Festivals, May was worried that she was up for false hope in winning the Sinnoh Grand Festival. That was when her trusty Glaceon and Blaziken cuddled into her. Blaziken then rummaged into her backpack and pulled out two items, her half of the terracotta ribbon and the photo of her and Ash her Pokémon had insisted she took with her on her travels. Seeing the photo made May both sad and happy at the same time. Ash meant more to her than anyone else or anything else in the whole world. Even her family and Pokémon, while meant so much to her, couldn't have the same special place the palette trainer had in her heart. She missed having him around her. She was now realizing that her feelings for him never went away, and are, in fact, as strong as ever. "I see you too know Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town, my friend," came a voice from behind her. She turned around and found herself face to face with Nando, her friend and rival. She had met him in her first Pokémon contest in Sinnoh. Out of all the rivals she had met, he was the most genuine and friendliest, very peaceful and in perfect harmony with his Pokémon. He also competed in gym battles as well as contests, with this being the second time he would be competing in the Sinnoh League. Unfortunately, he had gotten knocked out in the semi-finals by Akari, who May would be facing off against in the finals. "Hi, Nando." "Yes, Ash and I used to travel together in Hoenn," May answered. Her smile widened upon mentioning the Pallet native. "You know," Nando continued, "he and Dawn had a huge impact in me deciding to pursue both gym battles and contests. I had enjoyed battling both of them so much that I couldn't let go of either routes. The two of them are best friends. I saw that clearly. You, however, from the way you talk and think about Ash, and the way the two of you are in that photo, it's clear to me that you're in love with him." May was taken aback by Nando's revelation about her. She knew he was smart, but she had never imagined that he could read her like a book. But before she could respond, Glaceon and Blaziken stepped in and nodded their heads, confirming what the trainer coordinator said was true. May realized that they were right. Her feelings for Ash were still as strong as ever. "Perhaps you're right," she admitted, "and I think my Pokémon saw that all along. So does my family. Ash actually had a huge impact on my life too. I initially didn't even used to like Pokémon, and had only started my own journey just to visit places. But then I met Ash on my first day as a trainer, where he had arrived in Hoenn, and I had seen the strong bond he and his Pikachu shared. Not to mention, Pikachu itself was very friendly with me. It had played just as much of a part in me starting to love Pokémon as my Blaziken here when it was still a Torchic, who showed love and loyalty to me the moment it saw me. Heck, there was one time Ash's Trico had saved Torchic from a Seviper, even if it meant itself getting severely injured in the progress. Before I had competed in contests in Hoenn for a second time, Blaziken here insisted I take this photo with me on my future travels. Maybe, since your Pokémon know how much Ash means to you and how much you miss him, they wanted you to feel he's close to you everywhere you go, as if you have something to fight for while competing in your contests," said Nando. It was evident from her face his words struck a chord with her. "Why don't you take it a step further? Take this photo with you when you battle Akari in the finals. It might give you good luck, and whenever you feel lost, feel it in your hand in your pocket, as it might give you the motivation to not give up." May began thinking he was right. She looked at the photo again, and then at her half of the terracotta ribbon. "All right," May told him. "I'll take it with me for the finals." At that, Nando, Glaceon and Blaziken smiled at her, as she got ready for the finals of the Sinnoh Grand Festival. Nando and her Pokémon had been right. During the battle with Akari, whenever she had felt like she was losing, she felt the photo and felt as if Ash was with her. It gave her encouragement, and the will to carry on. She had managed to turn the tables and win, earning the title of top coordinator. However, her happy moment hadn't lasted long, as the following day, she had woken up to have found all of her Pokémon missing. She had contacted Professor Rowan to ask every Officer Jenny in Sinnoh to help find them. She had then told her parents and her brother, who had returned from Johto after placing in the top 8 of the Johto League, on her way back to Hoenn. Her parents had contacted Professor Birch to have all the Hoenn Officer Jennies try and look for her missing Pokémon, while Max had got in touch with Professor Elm to inform all the Johto Officer Jennies. while also telling Brock, Misty, and Dawn about her Pokemon's disappearance. Brock and Misty had then contacted Tracy, Professor Oak, and Ash's mum Delia, who got all the Kanto Officer Jennies to search Kanto 2. Professor Oak and Delia had then given May the unfortunate news of the disappearance of all of Ash's Pokemon too, all the ones he had at the time on him, and all the ones that were staying at Professor Oak's lab. It was a bit after their disappearance, Trip had shown up at her dad's gym, eventually leading to the situation she was currently in, having now found all of Ash's Pokemon and was ready to get them out of Geosenge Town, out of Kalos, and back to the guy she loved where they all belong. "We need to get out of here," she stated. She tried thinking of how she was supposed to get everyone out of this sewer. The small ones like Pikachu and Bulbasaur would be easy, so would the ones who can fly like Swallow and Talonflame, but the bigger and heavier ones like Snorlax and Torterra would be much more difficult, but she refused to leave anyone behind. However, before she could come up with something, at that moment they heard the ground shake and lift off the ground, revealing they were inside a pirate ship. May looked outside with horror on her face as she found that she, Eevee, and all of Ash's Pokemon were trapped on a Team Magma ship. Chapter 10. She Gives Me Hope. Ash continued chasing after Aipom through the forest. He had a tendency to run into Aipom that liked to take something of his. The Aipom he used to own before trading it to Dawn for her Buizel, like stealing his hat a lot. And now this Aipom was stealing his travel photos, and the ones of Hoenn all the more. "Come on, Aipom! Give them back!" he called out to the normal type. Aipom ran into a cave, and Ash followed it, only for it to stop eventually, and when Ash stopped behind Aipom, they were shocked to find all of May's Pokemon, from her first partner Blaziken, to her Beautifly, Delcatty, Venusaur, Munchlax, Wartortle, and Glaceon, locked up in cages. Ash gasped at the sight before him. "Trip, Serena, Harley, you're so going to regret this." He turned to Aipom as it pointed to its ears. "Aipom, did you hear their cries recently? And was wondering if these are the same ones in the photos?" he asked it. Aipom nodded, and Ash smiled at it. The knobs in his brain started turning as he tried to figure out how to release them. They all tried to use their attacks to break their cages, only to be electrocuted in return. Ash was horrified once again. How could Trip, Serena, and Harley have been so bitter that they'd be so cruel? Aipom tried to break the cage using Focus Punch, only to get electrocuted itself. "Aipom!" Ash cried. He ran up to the normal type, and tried his best to wipe its wounds. Aipom opened its eyes and smiled at the trainer, letting him know it was still okay. Ash sighed with relief. It then tried a Fury Swipes while using Double Team, only to get electrocuted again. Ash wiped its wounds again, with the normal type smiling at him as an indication that it was still okay. "There's got to be a way to free them," Ash said. He and Aipom started looking around the cave. He then accidentally tripped over something, and goes to check it out. It was some kind of switch. Curious to see if his idea would work, Ash flipped the switch the other way. He then turned back to all of May's Pokemon. "All of you, try your attacks one more time." They all did as he told them, and this time their various attacks managed to break their cages. "All right, we did it!" Ash exclaimed in triumph, throwing a fist up in the air in victory. Aipom jumped onto the pallet native and hugged him, with Ash hugging the normal type back. "Aipom, I can't thank you enough for helping me find and save them." They were soon joined by all of May's Pokemon, who, upon being freed from their prisons, ran up to Ash and Aipom and showed the former such affection. From Blaziken, Munchlax, and Wartortle hugging him, to Glaceon, Venusaur, Beautifly, and Delcatty rubbing their heads next to him. "Alright everyone, I appreciate your affection. But why? May's your trainer, not me," Ash asked the group of friendly Pokemon. That was when Blaziken faced the Kanto trainer and put a hand on its chest, trying to tell him that they had all seen how much Ash meant to May and had vowed to protect him like they would May. Ash may have not fully understood what Blaziken was saying, but it was clear that all of May's Pokemon had seen how much he and May meant to each other. It kind of reminded him of when he had returned to Pallet Town following the end of his adventures in Sinnoh, and had told his team from that region about her. Wow, Mum, Ash exclaimed, pleasantly surprised by how much bigger his room had become. I love it. But why? I had actually been thinking about doing this ever since you had left for Hoenn, his mum, Delia, responded. I thought it would be nice if your Pokémon from your previous adventures that you leave behind at Professor Oak's lab could come here sometimes if they're missing you a bit too much. Hence why Bayleaf, Heracross, Totodile, Swellow, Torkoal and Sceptile are here. And after you had told me how Grottle had evolved into Torterra, all the more did I feel the need to make your room bigger. Ash's cheeks went red, and Torterra looked like as if it was embarrassed, but was then comforted by its trainer. Ash, Pikachu, and the rest of his Sinnoh team approached Bayleaf, Totodile, Heracross, Torkoal, Swellow, and Sceptile. His Pokémon greeted them, with Bayleaf rubbing its head affectionately into Ash. I missed you too, Bayleaf, Ash told the lovable grass type, trying to get it to calm down. Meanwhile, Gible had made its way to Ash's desk, where his photos of his travels in Kanto, Johto, and Hoenn resided. Gible, no! Ash cried to the dragon type, as it looked like as if it was going to eat them, as it picked up one photo and aimed it towards its mouth. Pikachu ran up to Gible and tried to stop it with a thunderbolt, but since Gible's also a ground type, it had no effect. Thankfully, Gliscor flew up to Gible and used X-Scissor to bash its head, causing the photo to drop, but was then saved by Bayleaf's Vine Whip, who gave it to its trainer. Bayleaf, Gliscor, Pikachu, thanks so much, Ash thanked the 3 loyal Pokémon. Torterra and Infernape came next to their trainer to see what was the photo in his hand. It looked like him with a girl with brown hair, sapphire eyes, wearing a red top and a red bandana over her head. The rest of Ash's Pokémon gathered around him, with Staraptor, Torterra, Infernape, Gliscor, and Gible seemingly curious on who the girl in the photo with him was. That's May, Ash told them. She was the coordinator Brock and I had travelled with in Hoenn before dawn. Pikachu, Sceptile, Swellow, and Torkoal here got to know her very well, didn't you guys? Ash had a big smile on his face thinking about May. Truth be told, he missed travelling with her so much. Pikachu, Sceptile, Swellow, and Torkoal nodded their heads, also happy to hear Ash talk about May. Then Weasel started bragging to its fellow teammates how it had already met May back at the Wallace Cup. Staraptor gave Weasel a look, as if telling it, "Of course you've already met her, Weasel. She's a coordinator, and used to be raised by one." Gible tried staying out of their way. While Totodile and Heracross were trying to calm the two of them down, the rest of the Pokémon stayed focused on their trainer and May in the photo. Gliscor gave Ash a look, as if sensing more than friendship between him and the Petalburg coordinator. "What? No, Gliscor. May and I were just friends. That's all we saw each other as," Ash responded, trying to cover up the fact that he had, indeed, developed feelings for May throughout their travels together, and that they hadn't actually gone away. However, all of his Pokémon around him didn't look convinced, with Torterra and Bayleaf in particular giving him a look as if saying, "Yeah, none of us are buying the whole 'we were just friends' argument." Pikachu, Sceptile, Swellow, and Torkoal even nodded their heads, as if telling the rest of Ash's Pokémon that they're right not to buy Ash's "we're just friends" argument, that they saw for themselves the strong bond Ash and May shared with each other. "Guys, you're reading too much into this," Ash protested, and stormed out of his room, telling his mother to put the photo of him and May back in his room while handing it to her. However, Delia joined his Pokémon and smiled at them. "You've all got it all right," she told them. "He just doesn't want to admit he still has feelings for May." All of Ash's Pokémon nodded along, knowing too well that, while he may not want to admit it, their trainer was still very much in love with her. At that, Infernape asked for the photo of Ash and May from Delia. She gave it to the fire type, and it ran after its trainer. Once Infernape had caught up to Ash, it held out the photo to him, insisting he took it. "Infernape?" Ash asked, not completely understanding why the loyal fire type was pleading with him to take the photo of him and May with him. Delia and the rest of his Pokémon that were currently in the house managed to catch up with them. However, he began understanding what Infernape was implying. "You want me to take this photo with me to the next region I travel to?" he asked the fire type. Infernape nodded its head. with the rest of Ash's Pokemon encouraging him to take the photo. Realizing none of them were going to let the conversation about May and his feelings for her go, he took the photo. "Alright, fine, I'll take it with me to the next region," Ash told them. His mum smiled at Infernape, then at her son, knowing one day he'll understand why his Pokemon wanted him to take it with him everywhere, and that one day he'll be ready to admit he's still in love with May. After thinking about that moment when he had returned to Pallet Town from Sinnoh, now knowing how right his Pokemon had been back then, Ash's mind drifted to the conversation he had with Lily and Mallow a couple of weeks back, the night before the finals of the Alola League. Tomorrow was going to be the finals of the Alola League. Ash was extremely nervous. While he had, in fact, made it to the finals when he had previously competed in the Kalos League, back then he had lost to his rival from the Kalos region, Alan, and his Mega Charizard X, and tomorrow he was to face off against his main Alola rival and Lily's brother, Gladion. It was between him and Gladion who would become the Alola League champion, and that question would be answered tomorrow when they would have their battle with each other. Ash couldn't sleep. He was worried history would repeat itself and would lose to another of his main regional rivals in the finals, just like what had happened in the Kalos League. Pikachu could sense this worry in its trainer, as could Lycanroc, and wanted to cheer him up. The electric type rummaged through his backpack and brought out 2 items Ash hadn't looked at in a while: his half of the terracotta ribbon and the photo of him and May that Pikachu, his mum, and the rest of his Pokemon from Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh had insisted he took with him to Unova, Kalos, and Alola. The electric type brought the ribbon and the photo to him, insisting he holds them. Ash took the items and looked at them, with Lycanroc curious about them. There was happiness and sadness in his heart as he looked at the photo of him and the Petalburg coordinator. He still missed having her around him, more than any other person he's ever traveled with. Even Brock, Misty, or Dawn, his best friends. It was becoming clear to him that his feelings for May never went away. "Who's that girl in the photo with you, Ash?" asked a voice from the door of his room. It was Lily. "Oh, hi Lily," Ash greeted his friend. "You can't sleep either?" he asked, trying to change the subject. "No," she answered. "I was just thinking too much about your battle with my brother tomorrow." "Yeah," Ash agreed. "Me too." Then, popping up next to Lily was one of Ash's other Alola friends, Mallow. "Hey Ash," she chimed in. "Thinking about your match with Gladion tomorrow?" Ash nodded. Lily and Mallow then sat on the bed next to him, and Mallow then asked the same question Lily had previously asked him. "So Ash, who's the girl in the photo with you?" Ash hesitated to answer. At one point throughout his time in Alola, he had thought he'd fall for Lily, having formed a great friendship with her, just like what had almost happened with Dawn back in Sinnoh. But he had eventually realized, similar with Dawn, that while he had a great friendship with Lily, she was just a great friend to him and nothing more. He had suspicions that she might have had feelings for him, and he didn't want to hurt her by not only telling her he doesn't really feel the same way, but that he had feelings for someone else. Mallow had also been a great and supportive friend, having been so friendly to him and all of their classmates. While Ash couldn't be 100% sure, he didn't want to hurt Mallow either, in case she saw him as more than a friend to her. Mallow and Lily were great friends of his too, and he didn't want to lose them as friends. Back when he had returned home from Kalos, he had written back to Serena to see how she was doing in Hoenn. He had also wanted to address her confession of her feelings for him when she had left, so he had told her that he had appreciated her honesty, but he didn't feel the same way, but she was still a great friend of his. However, he never got a reply from her, which made him believe he had hurt her by not returning her feelings, and he didn't want to do the same thing now to Lily and possibly Mallow too, especially since they were asking about May, and he had now realized he still has feelings for the Petalburg coordinator. "Ash?" Lily asked again. She and Mallow looked at each other with knowing glances. They now suspected that the girl in the photo was more than just a friend to him. "Okay," Ash began, realizing he had no choice. This is May. Pikachu, Brock and I had traveled with her when we were in Hoenn. She's a coordinator. And did you ever think of her as more than a friend? Mallow continued asking. Ash was nervous about answering this, afraid of hurting them if he admitted he, in fact, did and still did. However, Pikachu answered for him by nodding yes at them. Pikachu seems to think so, Lily continued. So, why were you nervous to admit so? Ash let out a sigh and explained to Lily and Mallow about Serena, how he had wondered if he had hurt her by not returning her feelings for him, how he had suspected Lily might have had feelings for him too. The same, to some extent, with Mallow, even admitting he thought he'd fall for either Lily or Dawn, but soon realized his bonds with them could never surpass the one with May, and that Lily, Mallow, Lana and Dawn were just great friends of his, and nothing more. Ash, Mallow answered, we really appreciate your honesty. That's all we were asking for. And it means a lot to me that you consider me a great friend. Same with me, Lily chimed in. I just can't understand how my feelings for May haven't gone away. I've met some great friends like you two, Dawn and others, Ash asked himself. Maybe because your feelings for her were more than a one-time thing. Maybe you're in love with her? Mallow responded. Pikachu nodded its head confidently. Lycanroc agreed with them, sensing the strong connection its trainer had with the coordinator. See, Pikachu seems to agree with me, and he saw your bond with her with his own eyes. Maybe you're right, Ash retorted. Maybe that's why no other bond I've created with any of my other friends has been able to surpass the one I have with May. He looked at the photo again. My other Pokémon back in Pallet Town seemed to think the same as Pikachu and my mum, even when I had tried to deny it. In fact, before I had travelled to Unova, my Infernape had insisted I took this photo with me on my travels. I still haven't figured out why, though. Perhaps, Lily told her friend, it wanted you to all the more feel as if she's with you all the time, since it was clear to it how much she means to you, to make you feel as if when you're battling to try and win a league, you're not only fighting, but you have something or someone to fight for. Pikachu and Lycanroc nodded, indicating that they agreed with her. She could see that her words had some effect on him. I agree with them, Ash. In fact, Mallow continued, I think you should take this photo with you tomorrow when you battle Lily's brother in the finals, so that if you ever feel as if you can't continue the battle anymore, hold it so that you'll have something to motivate you to continue battling, and someone special to you to do that. Ash thought for a moment. He began considering the idea that his Pokémon had wanted him to feel like he's taking May with him, no matter where he and Pikachu went. Please, Lily insisted, take it. Consider it your good luck charm while in battle. You've helped me out so much. Thanks to you, I'm now able to be friends with Pokémon again. She patted Pikachu on the head as she said this. Now, I want to help you realize how special May is to you. I want both you and Gladion to do your best and give a great battle. Pikachu and Lycanroc gave their trainer a confident smile. Ash sighed. Alright, Lily. Alright, Mallow. I'll take it with me to my battle. He had been grateful to Mallow and Lily after the finals for their advice. While battling Gladion, there were a couple of times during the match he felt lost and as if he was going to lose, making him sometimes believe he should give up. But at those moments, he would reach for his pocket and feel the photo, feeling as if May was with him. It really helped in giving him such encouragement, because he had managed to overcome Gladion and beat him, becoming the Alola champion. After 6 attempts of trying to win an official Pokémon League, he finally won one on the 7th try. But his moment of happiness about his victory had been short-lived. The following day, he had found Pikachu and his entire Alola team missing. After letting all of his Alola friends, Professor Kukui and every Officer Jenny in Alola know about their disappearance, he contacted his mum, Tracy, Professor Oak, Brock and Misty, and they had then informed every Kanto Officer Jenny, only to find out that all of his Pokémon that he had left at Professor Oak's lab had disappeared too. The professor had then decided to contact his grandson and Ash's former rival, Gary Oak, who informed all the Sinnoh Officer Jennies and breeders across Sinnoh, including Reggie, Paul's older brother, hence how Paul got wind of the information and had decided to team up with Gary. But that hadn't been all. They told him that Brock had told them that the same had happened to all of May's Pokémon as well. It had been at that moment he had decided to go back to Petalburg City to see May again, wanting to be there for her when he believed she needed him the most. However, by the time he had gotten back to Hoenn, Trip had already won his gym battle against her dad, eventually leading to where he currently was now, having found and rescued all of May's Pokémon, here in Alola, and is now concerned with getting them out of the region and back to the girl he loved where they belonged. "Are you all ready to leave Unova and get back to Hoenn?" Ash asked all of the Petalburg Coordinator's Pokémon. They all cheered, which was their way of saying yes. But at that, he heard something nearby, prompting the Kanto native to check it out. He, Apom, and all of May's Pokémon ran outside and followed the direction that the noise seemed to have been coming from. The group headed for the forest on their right, until they had reached the sea. They saw something that really shocked Ash. It was a Team Magma ship sailing on the seaboard. Chapter 11. I would have done the same for you. May was in a panic. Team Magma? But how? She, Ash, Brock, Max, and Pikachu had defeated them back in Hoenn. They had supposedly disbanded, like Team Aqua had. Eevee snapped her out of her thoughts and pointed at an air vent. "Bulbasaur, look after the others. Pikachu, Eevee, and I are going to see if we can see what's going on at the control room," May told the loyal grass type. She, Pikachu, and Eevee quietly crawled through the air vent. Thanks to Pikachu and Eevee's heightened senses, they found the control room. When they peeked from the air vent leading into the room, May and Pikachu were shocked to see who was piloting the ship. "So that's how Team Magma are back," she exclaimed quietly. The three of them quickly and quietly headed back to the others. "We have to get off this ship," she addressed the group. They all nodded in agreement. She started looking around the room they were in, trying to get an idea on how to escape. She looked at the wall, then at Pikachu, Sceptile, Corphish, and Weasel. "Pikachu, try using your Iron Tail to make a hole in the wall. Sceptile, help Pikachu with your Leaf Blade. Corphish, help them out with your Crab Hammer. Weasel, use your Sonic Boom to help us get out." The four Pokémon started lashing at the wall with their respective attacks, but it wasn't enough. But May was determined not to give up. She was going to have them all reunite with Ash, even if it would be the last thing she did. She loved him so much and didn't want him to not see any of his beloved Pokémon again. That was when Gliscor nudging her snapped her out of her thoughts. It was evident to her that Gliscor wanted to help. She then remembered how it had often tried using X-Scissor to break out of the cage they had previously been in. She smiled at the determined and friendly ground flying type. She was then approached by Eevee, Oshawott, and Hawlucha, all three of them demonstrating their Tail Whip, Razor Shell, and Karate Chop respectively. She smiled at the three of them. "Alright then, Pikachu, Sceptile, Corphish, and Weasel, try your respective moves again," she declared. "And Gliscor, help them out with your X-Scissor. Eevee, use your Tail Whip. Oshawott, try your Razor Shell. Hawlucha, try Karate Chop." The 8 of them lashed at the wall once more, this time being very effective. They did it. They made a hole in the wall. "All right!" she exclaimed in triumph. "We did it!" The entire group cheered in agreement. Meanwhile, Ash, Apom, and all of May's Pokémon kept chasing after the boat to try and find out what the apparently revived Team Magma was up to. At that moment, they saw one of the walls form a giant hole. However, what was in the hole made Ash and all the Pokémon of the girl he loved both relieved and worried at the same time. "It's May!" Ash exclaimed, "and my Pokémon are all with her. They're stuck on the ship," he called out to the Petalburg Coordinator and his Pokémon. "Hey May, Pikachu, everyone, we're going to try and get you off that ship." May, Eevee, and the group of the Pallet Trainer's Pokémon spotted him and called out to him, happy to see him. Ash turned to the group of Pokémon with him. He tried to come up with a plan in his head on how to get them to shore. Thankfully, it appeared that the ship was taking a break from sailing for a bit, which gave him an opening to rescue them. He turned to Glaceon and Delcatty. "Glaceon, try your Ice Beam to make a bridge for them," Ash told May's loyal Ice type. "And Delcatty, use Assist. Let's hope it gives us Glaceon's Ice Beam," he told the playful normal type. The two Pokemon then used the attacks he instructed them to use, and luckily, Delcatty's assist did indeed give them Glaceon's Ice Beam. Aipom then jumped onto Glaceon and used a double team to multiply Glaceon and its Ice Beam. The multiple Ice Beams formed a bridge reaching up to the ship. Glalie, May said to Ash's Ice type, "Do you think your Ice Beam can help them?" Glalie then shot an Ice Beam that joined up with Glaceon's and Delcatty's assist Ice Beam, helping to form the bridge. Once it had formed, with one end touching the edge of the ship near the hole they had made, and the other touching the shore where Ash, Aipom and her Pokemon were, May, Eevee and Ash's Pokemon all started making their way across the bridge. Charizard, Noctowl, Swellow, Staraptor, Gliscor, Unpheasant, Talonflame, Hawlucha, Noivern and Rowlet all made it to the other side quickly and safely first, since they can all fly. Once all the flying types had made it safely to the other side, with many of them hugging their trainer upon seeing him, May, Eevee and the rest of Ash's Pokemon started walking on the bridge carefully. As soon as they had reached the end of the bridge, May's Pokemon jumped onto her in an affectionate embrace, and the rest of Ash's Pokemon joined his flying types and did the same with him. "Alright guys, I'm happy to see you're all safe too," the two trainers told all of their respective Pokemon, as they both found it difficult to get air due to being completely squashed by their beloved and friendly Pokemon. Once they all stopped hugging them, giving their respective trainers space to breathe, Ash and May stared at each other, ran up to each other and gave each other a loving hug. "I'm so glad you're okay," they told each other as they hugged. Their Pokemon started intermingling with each other. Ash's Bulbasaur stared at May's Venusaur in shock, stunned that the Bulbasaur it had fallen in love with was now fully evolved into a strong Venusaur. It still loved it though, but wanted to catch up with it. After all, Bulbasaur had taught Venusaur quite a bit, so it deserved some credit for Venusaur's success. Meanwhile, Ash and May hugged a bit more, so happy to see each other again and know they're both safe. However, once they felt the eyes of all their Pokemon on them, they reluctantly stopped hugging, their cheeks red. Their Pokemon had huge smiles on their faces. "Ash," May began, "I'm so sorry I had almost dated Trip." However, Ash smiled at her and placed a finger on her lips to interrupt her apology. "It's okay, May," he told her. "Gary told me everything, and I had my suspicions even before he told me that Trip had forced you into agreeing to date him, with his superior watching you all the time before, from what Gary told me, Paul had gotten rid of him." Ash's Torterra paid very close attention to what they were saying. Hearing how this Trip boy, along with his superior, had threatened the girl its trainer loved angered it. Torterra had made a pact with the rest of Ash's Pokemon that it would not only protect its trainer, but May too, back when they had left Sinnoh, and has now vowed to itself that it would be part of Ash's chosen team against Trip if they ever go up against him in a battle again, and would take down Superior. Ash continued speaking. "May, you only agreed to go with him to protect me and my Pokemon. If I had been in your situation, where someone had threatened to hurt you and your Pokemon, I would have done the same thing you did." May's eyes widened in disbelief. You would?" Ash nodded yes. "I'd honestly sacrifice my happiness for you. Something you were willing to do for me. That's how much you mean to me." "Ash," May replied, "you mean so much to me too. It just took me a while to realize that." "Same with me. It took me a while to realize it too," Ash retorted. The two of them held hands, stared into each other's eyes before leaning into one another until their lips touched, sharing their first kiss. All of their Pokemon cheered, happy to see their trainers finally confessing their love for each other. Aipom and Eevee joined in the cheering. Ash and May then broke their kiss and smiled at each other, both feeling better that they've now confessed their love for each other. Their Pokemon gathered around them. Pikachu jumped onto its trainer's shoulder where it belonged, while Glaceon rubbed its head into its own trainer. "You've been waiting for me to do that, haven't you, buddy?" Ash told his electric-type best friend while rubbing its head. Pikachu nodded its head yes. "As have you, Glaceon," May told the loyal Ice-type, who nodded its head yes as May patted it. That's when Eevee and Aipom appeared near the two lovers. "Ash," May told him as she picked Eevee up in her arms, This sweet Eevee I had met in Geosench Town was the reason I was able to find and free all of your Pokémon. I owe a lot to it. Thanks so much, Eevee, Ash told the sweet normal type, patting it on its head. You took care of May and my Pokémon. Eevee smiled, happily, satisfied that Ash was taking a liking to it too. It had grown quite an attachment to May and wanted to like the guy she loves too. Also, Ash said, as he let Apom climb onto his other shoulder, you can thank this cheeky but friendly Apom I had met in the Striaton forest here, where I was able to find and rescue all of your Pokémon too. May smiled at the mischievous Pokémon. Thanks for looking after Ash and my Pokémon, Apom. Apom smiled back. It was starting to love Ash and wanted to feel like a member of Ash and May's family, since it too could see how much they loved each other and believed they deserved to be together. Infernape then gave Ash a pat on the back. Blaziken did the same to May. The two trainers smiled at their respective fire types and took their copies of the photos of themselves together from their bags and showed it to them. Infernape, thanks for encouraging me to take this with me, Ash told it. It really helped in giving me encouragement while battling Gladion in the Alola League. And you too, Blaziken, May told her starter. You were right to push me into taking this with me. It really helped me hold on to hope when I had battled Akari. The two fire types smiled, and the rest of their Pokémon joined in. Ash and May held each other's hands again. What do you say we go and stop the apparently revived Team Magma, once and for all? Together, Ash asked the girl he loved. I'd love to, May answered the guy she loved. From now on, we stay together till the end. They kissed again and turned to their Pokémon, and they all cheered in agreement, showing that they're all right by their side to the end. Together, Ash and May, accompanied by Eevee, Apom and all of their Pokémon, ran to the nearest seaport in order to catch the next boat to follow Team Magma, with the two in-love trainers holding hands, content to be reunited and together at last.